Caroline, so welcome everyone to this virtual meeting of the Middlesbrough Overview and Scrutiny Board. I'm Councillor Matt Story, I'm the Vice Chair of the panel, and I'll be chairing the committee meeting today. Can I just remind all participants that normal rules of procedure apply? Any questions should be directed through me as the Chair. If you just want to raise your hands in the normal way, I'll make a note of it. If I haven't seen you or you don't think I've spotted you, please use the chat function to let one of the officers know or let me know, and I'll make sure that I add you to the list. We're meeting virtually, so some proceedings may take slightly longer, so if you can just be patient. And if you're invited to speak, please state your name and be specific as possible as you can about any issue you want to raise. I'd like to welcome members of the public who also be potentially viewing this online. Welcome to this meeting. They won't be able to actively participate in the meeting or comment directly on proceedings. And can everyone make sure that their conduct reflects the fact that this is a public meeting and it is being streamed online. So with the technicalities out of the way, if we can move on to the agenda. So item number 1 is apologies for absence.
Yes, Chair. Apologies have been received from Councillors Thompson, Cook, Coop, Hill and Saunders. Councillor Hubbard is in attendance as Councillor Saunders' substitute. And we've also received apologies from Mayor Andy Preston, Chair. Thanks.
Okay, thanks very much, Chris. So item number 2, declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest? No. Okay. Minutes of the previous meeting held on the 5th of November. Do we have any queries or any points anyone wants to raise on the minutes?
No, Chair. No.
Can we agree them as a true record?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. Next item is Executive Forward Work Programme. This is for noting any comments or anybody got anything they want to say about anything particular on there that is of any interest? No. Oh, Tom?
It's about the transporter bridge. Is this work that's problems that developed since the large amount of money was spent several years ago, or is it work that was overlooked when that was being done?
Well, I can't answer that question. Is this something that you would like to see taken up through one of the panels? Perhaps we can raise it with the chairs, or we could see if there's a way of doing that. I mean, Tony's got his hand up. I don't know if Tony wants to speak to that.
Yeah, just if it helps, Chair, there is a report that is scheduled to go to the next executive that will cover the issues in full.
Okay, thanks, Tony. Perhaps if we wait for that report to come forward then, Tom, and we can a further meeting of OSB, if we need to look into it any further, we can ask some questions on that.
That's fine. Yeah, thanks, Tony.
Okay, any further comments on that item? No? Okay. So item 5 is Municipal Council's response to COVID-19. Thanks to Tony for coming along to give a report. I'll open it up to Tony to do that, and then if we can take questions at the end once Tony's finished, save our questions up for the end there. So yeah, Tony, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I've got a short presentation that I'll take you through if that's okay. I'll share my screen. Can everybody see that okay?
Yep.
Yeah, great. Okay. So just to, sorry, the view is in the way of the slide. Just from my last attendance, OSB, just a couple of points that were unanswered there that I said I'd come back with. The first was a question around selective landlord licensing and whether we'd be seeking an extension. Discussed this with Eric Scully, who's the Director of Adult Social Care. And although the housing inspections have been suspended during the COVID pandemic, we do have plans in place to undertake the same volume over the period of the selective landlord licensing. So consequently, as neither tenants nor landlords will be disadvantaged, then we're not looking for an extension at this point in time. That said, if it looks like we're not going to hit those numbers, then that is something that we would do. In terms of the request on the update on the council's approach for Christmas free school meals, that's been superseded by a local allocation of national winter grants, which the government announced. I've got a slide on that in a moment. And in terms of the impact on staff absences, again, I've got a couple of slides on that for you later on in the presentation. The latest COVID position looks like this. So our numbers have drastically reduced over the last 10 to 15 days. Our figure now stands at around 170, having been over 500 15 days or so ago. What we're seeing is across all of the indicators that the government are suggesting will be the indicators that will be considered when looking at which of the tiers councils are placed in. We've had a similar drop across all those. So our rates across the population have reduced significantly. Our rates in the over 60s have reduced significantly. The number of people in hospital has reduced significantly. So our numbers have definitely gone the right way over the last 3 weeks, and that mirrors what's going on across the whole of the Tees Valley. So we're keeping an eye on this. We're hoping it's a trend that continues. The rate of reduction is slowing down, but you would expect that as our numbers get lower. So we're still hitting 25 to 30 cases a day, but that's massively reduced from the 100+ cases that we were seeing previously. When we look at that against the indices of multiple deprivation, you'll see there that we have got a higher prevalence of the disease in many of our deprived wards. Although some of the work that we've undertaken has shown that, for example, in wards like Central, we're getting a lower rate, and that is at odds with the message that we would expect to see, because it's well known that more deprived communities are more affected by COVID. It's quite clear that that's down to testing. So our testing strategy, which I'll come on to, will be about targeting those poorer communities where we know that take-up is low. Final slide on this, which just shows a breakdown by ward, and I'm sorry you can't see that very well, and neither can I. Moving on to the winter grants then. So this was a £700,000-ish allocation that we received from government, and it's for the period of the school holidays from January to March, so it covers 4 weeks, £170 million nationally. And that's therefore superseded local plans that we were developing around free school meals approach over Christmas and school holidays. I've done some work on this, and there was a single member decision yesterday. So a lot of discretion for councils as to how they could use the grant. Really, the only rule was that 80% of it should go towards families with children. So we will be allocating grants to families with dependent children who are in receipt of council tax reduction, or have children in need at risk, or are residents with children who are not in receipt of the council tax reduction scheme and fall outside of the crisis support. And we've done that, and we've extended it beyond purely the free school meals cohort, because we're aware that there are large numbers of residents who are struggling financially, but don't fall into the free school meals category or are not in receipt of universal credit, for example. So the last time we looked at this, there are about 2,200 households in the town who've never been in arrears with their council tax, but now are. They might be self-employed people. There might be people who have been subject to furlough, so they've been getting a percentage of their wages, but of course their living costs remain at the same level. So we're trying to target this as best we can, and the money that people receive will be to meet the costs of food and to meet the costs of winter fuel bills as well, because there's no point giving people food if they haven't got gas or electricity to cook it. So we'll be doing that. What we'll also be doing is we've retained some of the allocation, and we're working with Middlesbrough Environment City to create something a little bit more sustainable, so that we don't just drop into this kind of cycle of giving additional support whenever there's a school holiday, but we actually try and work with families to get them cooking more at home, to make them more ingredient aware, to provide healthy, cheap meals for themselves and for the children. And Mark Adams is working with Mark at MEC, and we're due a paper on how that's going to look next week. So I'm happy to come back to the next OSB and provide an overview of that, Chair. In terms of impact on the council, there's a graph here that shows the rate of staff absence. So you'll see we've currently got something like 160 staff who are absent because of sickness. That represents about 5% of the workforce. And you'll see there the start of lockdown 1, the end of lockdown 1, and the start of lockdown 2. So our numbers have been relatively static and haven't yet really impacted on our ability to deliver services to the public. And you'll see that it equates to overall 7.7% of our working days have been lost to COVID. If we look at the next slide, which I hope you can see, you will see COVID as a proportion of all staff sickness. So at the beginning of lockdown 1, so back in March, COVID sickness was accounting for about 25% of all sickness. As the first wave of the pandemic kind of eased, so did the number of staff who were sick with COVID, and we've seen that rise through to the start of lockdown 2. So it currently stands at something like just under 20% of our staff. We've also looked at the number of staff who were shielding, either because they're part of the clinically extremely vulnerable cohort, or they've been asked to self-isolate. And you'll see that we were up to 350 at the start of lockdown 1. By the end of that period, it was down to 150. And currently, we've got something like 100 staff who are either self-isolating or shielding. I think the important point to make there is that a lot of those staff can still work. We've got almost 1,400 staff at any point in time who are logged onto our systems remotely at the moment. So being in isolation doesn't necessarily affect somebody's ability to do the job. So if I were to self-isolate for 2 weeks, I could still do my job. I'd be self-isolating, but I'd just be working exclusively from home. And then the final slide just shows you the, again, sickness due to COVID is a proportion of all sickness, and staff self-isolating due to COVID is a proportion of all sickness, which is something that's covered in an earlier slide, really, so I apologise for that. So I think the message is, yes, we've had people who've had to either self-isolate or have been forced to isolate because of health conditions. Yes, we've had sickness through COVID, but it hasn't reached a point whereby we've not been able to deliver services. I know we've got the executive member for environment in the meeting today, as well as Jeff Field as the director. We did have some issues there around refuse collection, but because we've got a pretty agile workforce, we were able to move staff from area care into that area to make sure that bins still got emptied and such like. So up to now, COVID hasn't really impacted on our ability to deliver services. And if you recall some information I shared previously with you, when we look at our productivity levels pre and post COVID, then they're largely unchanged. So the workforce has managed to maintain the same level of output through the COVID period. And I hope that was useful, but that's all that I had to share with you today. But happy to take questions on this or anything else, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Tony. Right, I can see some hands going up. So if I take Councillor McTighe first, and I've got Councillor Higgins after that.
Yes, thank you, Chair, through you. Tony, it's a $64,000 question, and I won't be offended if you can't answer, but I have to ask it. Can you attribute this? You said that, you know, the number of cases has gone down, which is obviously good news. Is there any way we can attribute this to anything?
I think that's exceptionally difficult,
Yeah.
Joan, if I'm being honest. You know,
Yes.
The council has done all it can to promote COVID-safe practices within the communities and businesses and such like. I don't think there's one kind of causal effect. You know, I think some of it is about the wave running its natural course. Some of it is about good practice and people doing the right thing. But we're seeing this right across the Tees Valley. So I don't think you can attribute it to. I don't think there's a silver bullet that's kind of solved the problem. I remember talking about 4 weeks ago at our strategic coordination group and saying, kind of, we're doing all this stuff and the figures are going up. You know, what more can we do? We're doing exactly the same now and they've come down. So I think it's really, I certainly wouldn't want to claim any credit for whatever the COVID rate is in the town. I think a lot of it is nature.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. Councillor Higgins, I've got Councillor Udin after that.
Thank you, Chair. Tony, when you mentioned about money being distributed, how will that, do people have to apply for it? The ones who are on school meals?
Sorry, Teresa. No, we've identified the cohort. There will be an application process for those people who perhaps we've missed, but we're very conscious that particularly for those 2,200 or so households I mentioned who've never had to claim before, that there might be a resistance to do that. So the process that we will follow is we know who the individuals are, particularly around free school meals, for example. We've got a system that we've used many times before whereby we send a code out to a mobile phone eventually, and then somebody can go in a shop and they get credited with the cash amount. So that's the process that we would be using. And I think personally, I think that affords our residents far more dignity than being given food parcels and such like, and gives them some choice as to what that money's spent on, whether it be food or heating or water.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Tony. Yes, and you have done a good job. Right,
okay, thanks for that. Councillor Udin.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thank you very much. Yeah, that question was mine actually as well, Chair. Teresa asked, can I just comment on that? You know, like obviously the improvement, it's the numbers gone down. I think it's a credit, as Tony was saying, he doesn't want to take credit. Obviously, it's a council staff, the councillors, as well as I think our public. I think they're listening. So I think we got to acknowledge that public are listening and they are working together. So I think that reflects obviously their good work. So yeah, thank you to everyone. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have you got any further questions for Tony? I've got a couple of my own, if you don't mind, Tony. One is just about the numbers of cases. Are our numbers now lower than they were before we went into lockdown?
Yes, I believe. I believe you're talking about the second lockdown.
Yeah.
Let me just refer back to the slide, Matt, and then I can give you an accurate answer. So if we look at second lockdown, then yeah, absolutely, our numbers are much lower then. So our numbers are as low today as they've been since the end of September.
Okay, but we were in tier 2 before we went into lockdown, and we're now we're into tier 3.
So we were in tier 2, but destined for tier 3. So we were in discussion at that point in time with the government about a move of the Tees Valley into tier 3. So I think if the discussions we were having with government about moving the Tees Valley into tier 3 were superseded by the national lockdown. There'll be a review, as we all know, on the 16th of December, or by the 16th of December, which will determine which tier we remain in beyond. We're in beyond then. We're obviously, arguing for tier 2, given the rate across the town and across the Tees Valley at the moment, and if we look at the other indicators like the number of people in hospital, the number of people on ventilation, the number of people in critical care, prevalence amongst the over 60s, then we think there's a very strong argument for tier 2. The problem is we don't know where the benchmark is. So, our rates are a third of what they are. The response we get from civil servants to that is, kind of go back 4 or 5 months, and a rate of 20 per 100,000 was considered high, and we're still at we're at 170. So it's very much a moving feast, and I think it perhaps might work like the exam system, where it depends how everybody else is doing as well, and where you sit in the big table. But we will, we'll just keep doing what we're doing, and we'll keep arguing for tier 2.
Okay, thanks, Tony. Can I ask about the vaccines? I mean, people might have seen today the map of where people have to go in order to get to get a vaccine, and it looks as though the nearest that we will get is Newcastle, and there's a huge swathe of nothing between sort of North Yorkshire and Newcastle. Are we expecting that Middlesbrough Council and our public health teams will be I'll be lobbying to try and get some kind of much more local, regional provision for Tees Valley, because it seems ludicrous that people on Teesside would be expected to travel all the way to Newcastle to get an absolutely critical vaccine.
And I mean, many people in Middlesbrough, and in other areas would be unable to travel that length of that kind of journey, either because of health or financial issues. In any case, we know, for example, that car ownership is low across the Tees Valley generally. Over a third of people who live in the Tees Valley don't own a car. So absolutely, we will be doing that. My assessment of that is this is about the first wave rollout of the vaccination. And as the programme develops, then, and you roll out to community vaccination and such like, then you absolutely must have local vaccination. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So that's absolutely something that we will be discussing and contributing to as, the vaccination programme becomes more developed.
Okay, I mean, if you can update this panel and keep us posted as to how those conversations are going and keep us updated, I think it's absolutely vital that we try and make progress on that. I'm sure that our teams will be doing all that.
Of course.
I noticed Councillor Morstan put his hand up. I have one more question, but I'll let Councillor Morstan come in. I don't want to hog the time. Tom?
Thanks, Matt. No, my understanding of the situation is Newcastle would be a hub that would be distributing the vaccines throughout the northeast. I could be wrong, but that was what I understood. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Tom. I mean, that might be the case, but if you look at the map, there's a hell of a lot of hubs in the southeast and surrounding large metropolitan areas. So if they are hubs, it's an interesting way of doing it. But I hope that is the case. I think that would be better. Councillor Udin, you had your hand up there.
Sorry, Chair. Yeah. Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, can I just ask again? It's like probably $1 million question actually to Tony. Yeah. Obviously, we've been hearing ethnic minorities and BMEs were high risk of infection from COVID-19. But in terms of distribution, do you think they might get a bit priority? Because obviously they are recorded being obviously really high risk. And as you know, sometimes, black people have been called by disease carrier. And I mean, all sorts, we had negative views and things like that. So in terms of this, the priority, will there be any priority for black BME communities? Thanks.
The honest answer to that, Councillor Rudin, is I don't know. I mean, at the moment, we are trying to develop with central government a testing strategy for our community, and that's more advanced, if I'm honest, than the vaccination strategy. We haven't really got to that level of detail. I would imagine that our vaccination programme would follow locally, a similar kind of route as our testing programme, where we're concentrating that on those who are delivering critical tasks such as care, those who want to visit relatives, and then we're starting to dig down into vulnerable groups, whether that be those groups are vulnerable because of ethnicity, disability, or where they live. So, we will come out with a whole programme on the back of that locally. And I would hope that we start to get information on that very, very soon. But we don't have that information, and that's not a case we've yet been asked to present.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Tony.
Okay, thanks, Afit. I mean, I have one more thing I was just going to reference, Tony, based on what you talked about, and it was to do with Middlesbrough Environment City. I mean, I'm really pleased you're looking to work more closely with them in terms of a provision of food and support for families. And I think, from my personal perspective, I've been getting food parcels from them for vulnerable people and delivering them to people in my ward and in other areas of the town who've been asking. And the food parcels that they've produced, based on mostly locally sourced produce and so forth, has been absolutely amazing. Absolutely fantastic service they've provided right from March all the way through. And just as something that I've mentioned this before in meetings, but in any of your discussions, one of the things that I would appreciate you raising with them is one of the schemes they used to run, and I don't know if they still do it, was they used to provide slow cookers and cookbooks to people who needed them in deprived communities to help them learn how to cook, meals, batch cooking, and make sure that they could get by on small amounts of food. And it was an absolutely fantastic scheme. And I guess if you're discussing it with Mark Fishpool, if there's any opportunity to kind of get something like that back up and running. I thought that was such a valuable program that they ran. It's just something that I was always very fond of.
No, I absolutely agree. So we've, to be honest, we've not given much direction because I don't think we should to Mark Fishpool and Mark Adams and what they develop. We don't know better than them. They know much better than us. So what we've done is we've said, this is how much money is available. What can you do to help make, the provision of food to families and the ability to cook it more sustainable, so that we don't just have to fall into giving them food every time there's a school holiday. I'm sure if that's something that's been successful in the past, Mark Fishpool as well as I do.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's something that will be in there.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Tony. Any further questions for Tony before we move on? No. Okay. Well, thanks very much, Tony, for coming along. Thanks for the report. Much appreciated.
Cheers.
So if we move on to item 6, executive member update, executive member for environment, we've got Dennis and Dennis McCabe here, Councillor Dennis McCabe, who's the executive member for environment, and we've also got Jeff Field, who's the director for that department. Before we get cracking on your presentation, Dennis, I just wanted to inform the panel that, I'm not sure if all members are aware, but there have been 2 call-ins accepted on the issue of fortnightly bin collection. Those call-ins will be discussed at a separate meeting of the OSB, most likely on the 18th of December, once people have agreed it in their diaries. So with that in mind, once Dennis has finished his report, I'd like to say that I want to restrict members not to discuss fortnightly bins at this meeting. We will have ample opportunity to ask questions and raise concerns at the call-ins. But what I don't want us to end up doing is sort of re-prosecuting and rehearsing the same arguments in separate meetings. I think we've got the call-in meetings arranged. They are going to go ahead. So that issue will be dealt with in a lot of detail. So for tonight's meeting, if we can restrict our questions to questions that don't refer to that matter, because we have got separate meetings arranged on that issue, specifically for that. But I'll open it up now to Dennis and to Jeff.
Thank you, Councillor. Could we have the first slide, please, Scott?
Yeah, just bear with me, Councillor. I'm just starting to share your information.
Thank you.
You all right, Cal?
Looks like we've got a technical issue, Scott. Oh, there we go. Can we jump on to the next slide, Scott, please? And the next one. Thank you very much. As part of my portfolio, we've instigated, because of the climate change, we're looking at a green strategy across Middlesbrough, and we're trying to reduce the carbon emissions net zero by 2029. And the emissions for the town as a whole, the government's target of by 2050. The green strategy will be based on the 10 One Planet Living principles and its foundation to develop the action plan. We all know the 10 principles. I'll remind everybody: health and happiness, the local economy, equality, cultural communities, land and nature, sustainable water, local and sustainable food, travel and transport, materials and products, zero waste, and zero carbon energy. Next slide, Scott, please. The aims and objectives of the green strategy is to make council net carbon by 2030. Agreed council policy to ensure Middlesbrough is a town net carbon by the 2040. Working groups have been set up. At the moment, all the heads of services have been involved in this, and they're forming their own groups, and they've all been allocated one of the 10 principles as each group. So some will overlap, and all have been briefed on the green strategy. Training is going to be given to all of the heads of services, and this is an accredited qualification by Northumbria University on the green strategy and green issues. It should be completed early next year, but it's an ongoing issue, ongoing program at the moment. Next slide, Scott. And the next one, please. As you all know, we are committed to planting over 15,000 trees by 2021. This is to bring our tree cover up to national average of 16%. We're currently at 11.5, which is quite low. Many parts of the town are quite leafy, especially in the suburbs, but we need to increase our leaf cover. This is obviously good for the environment and a clean air, and it's good for biodiversity, animals, etc. Last year, 19 to 20, we planted 620 mature trees and 1,500 whips. This year, we're planting 960 standard mature trees and 12,750 whips. These trees include a field maple, common alder, silver birch, hornbeam, white cherry, English oak, rowan and lime. Community planting is going to commence in December, which will be next week, and this is working with the Environmental City, and the people can call the call centre. I believe that's on the next slide. Next slide, Scott, please. The wildflower areas. Many people might have known around the town that the wildflower areas have been sprayed out. You'll see this by the grasses being killed off, and wildflowers, there's 30,000 square metres, which I've roughly worked it out is about 4 football pitches worth, around the town, roundabouts on the side of roads. This will be fantastic for the wildlife, enhance visual appearance around the town, but will also develop into wildlife havens across Middlesbrough for the birds, the bees, butterflies, etc., and obviously wildlife in general. And it is good for the environment, cleaning the air. Next slide, Scott. Thesaurus Park or Dino Park, fantastic area that has been neglected for many years. The mayor actually had a vision of turning it into a theatre, put outside performance on. This wasn't possible because of the wildlife that was there, and there was some rare orchids found. So there's been a rethink on this, and a volunteer group, Community Champions, have been given permission to paint the dinosaurs. In this, the Community Champions have been given paint from the council, 2 local companies, and they've been round and repainted the dinosaurs in some nice colours and renamed them. This, on the footfall, whilst the Community Champions have been painting the dinosaurs, has increased exponentially. I was down there one day helping out, and I was talking to people from York and Newcastle, and they've found this all through the Facebook pages of the Community Champions, and people are sharing this. And it is now becoming a very, very busy place, and it's actually an attraction. People didn't even know it was in the town because it was neglected in the past. The Community Champions have been around and cleaned all the area up. They've lit a pick on a regular basis, and the painting is now complete. But on that, we now, we've set up an action team up, and we're now got some new proposals to go into the area. We're going to put some new paths and lighting in. We're going to install information boards about the different types of dinosaurs we have. There could be a possibility of a catering facility, some kind of a little porter cabin there, and that's negotiable with a contractor if they wish to take it on, and some new play equipment. Going back onto the lighting, we've been round asking local companies to offer to pay for some of the stuff, a sponsorship. To date, we've had Cleveland Cables are willing to pay for all the cables and donate all the cables for the lighting. We've also had a promise from AV Dawson's to provide some money towards a slide and a zip wire for the area. Because at the moment, when the kids come, they go around, they see the dinosaurs, and dwell time is limited to walk around the area. So we're trying to encourage people to use the area and also walk on the path down towards Newport Bridge and beyond into Stockton and the barrage, which is a fantastic nature walk, and you've got the river and the history behind it. So we're trying to increase that. So that's work ongoing. As and when it happens, you will be obviously informed later on. Next slide, please, Scott. Should be on Urban Farm now, Scott. Thank you. Work is moving forward with the Camphill Trust, and planning permission has been applied for the Urban Farm. Expect the farm to begin taking shape in the spring, summer of 2021. Obviously, COVID has a big influence on what is happening, but hopefully this vaccine and restrictions getting lifted will push this forward a little bit. So that's all the information I have on that at the moment. Next slide, please, Scott. Lower Ormsby Beck. This is an area down at on the A66 next to the chemical factory, opposite the Six Meadows on the road, the approach road over the bridge to the football ground. There's a habitat of grassland, reed beds, and stream there, which is the Beck, Ormsby Beck coming down. We've identified it as a local nature reserve, which is a fantastic thing. It's less than half a mile from the city, the town centre. We've also got a very rare species, the dingy skipper butterfly, which is a dusty brown with white spots. And I've got the Latin name for it, so I'm not going to attempt it, but go on, I will do. Eneris tagus. We've got that in the area, and we've applied for planning permission for this. This will be subject to assets. Obviously, this is an asset area that could be turned into some kind of commercial area. But with the biodiversity in the area, and we've got waterfalls, reed, birds, moles, you name it, it's down there, and it's a fantastic place to go. It'd be great for the kids and school visits. I think it's well worth, and it should be taken away from the council's asset register and turned into this nature reserve, and we keep a nice little bit of beauty on our doorstep that is walking distance for a lot of people in the town centre. And this will be brought to executive in the near future for approval. So that's when the planning permission and the taking out the assets register is done. Next one, please, Scott. The pothole purge is almost complete. It's done a fantastic job. We're in the last ward at the moment, which is my ward, Trindon ward. I would like to ask anybody who's on and other councillors if there's any areas in your ward that has been missed, and I've noticed several in my area. Keep in contact with your residents, ask for an update if there's areas that have been missed, which is quite easily done. Please contact me, and I will endeavour to get them done as soon as possible. We have also, as part of that pothole programme, we still have our intervention of potholes throughout the town. We are coming into winter. The roads are going to get salted, they're going to get frozen. This is when the surfaces tend to break down and potholes tend to appear. So we still have the pothole programme going on, and we still go out and repair. So if anybody needs them, please don't hesitate to contact me. Emails, phone calls, no problem. I will deal with them as soon as I can. And there is the one-stop shop process to go through as well. And if you don't get any satisfaction, please contact me directly. And that is it. If anybody wants to ask any questions, please.
Okay, thanks very much, Dennis. I'll just wait for the report to disappear so I can see everyone's faces in case I miss anybody. Okay, you're all back on the screen. I'll take Councillor McTighe and then Councillor Morstan. You're on mute there, Councillor McTighe.
Somebody keeps doing it. Whatever. Am I limited to the number of questions?
Well, if you just ask the first one, and we'll just take one each, and then we'll go back around again.
Okay. It's on litter bit. It's on our bins, but it's got nothing to do with bin collection. I have brought this up before many years ago when Bob Kerr was the environment head of environment. I would like Jeff Field or Dennis McCabe to liaise with people like 13, who are the biggest social housing providers, because very often when their properties are voided, the bins are left there, and 9 times out of 10 they're stolen. They're used for people who burgle, believe it or not, to carry their ill-gotten gains away. But we've had a few cases in the last few weeks of youths or whatever who know that these houses are empty and are simply upturning the bins and setting fire to the contents. I've sent Jeff Field photographs of it, and we really need to be getting these bins off these empty premises until somebody else moves in. This particular house that they did it to, it's been empty for 6 months, so there's plenty of time. All it needs is a bit of liaison with 13. I asked for it before. Whether it was done or not, I don't know, but obviously it isn't being done now. That's my first question, Chair.
Okay, thanks very much. Dennis, do you want to reply?
Thank you very much, Councillor. That's a fantastic idea. I've just jotted that down on my jobs to do, and I will try and endeavour as much as possible to liaise with, get some kind of a plan in place. I'm not going to make excuses, but if 13 don't talk to us, we can't remove the bin. But we will try. We'll liaise with them as soon as we can, and we'll try and come up with a plan. Thank you very much, Councillor.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Morstan, and I've got Councillor Higgins.
Thanks. I've got 2 questions. I'll ask this one first. Potholes. Congratulations on the brilliant work done by staff in this monumental task. The only bit of work left in Martin is out of the scope of the pothole team, but the section of the A172 Stokely Road from the Parkway to the Southern Cross, which is going to be resurfaced completely. Are you aware of any start date for that yet, please? Thank you.
Dennis?
Thank you, Councillor. This will be subject to a road closure, and there'll have to be a notice put in. I haven't got the dates, but I will get them dates and give them back to you as soon as I can. Will that be okay, Councillor?
Okay, thanks for that. Got Councillor Higgins, then Councillor Platt.
Thanks, Chair. Regarding the 13 and the bins, Councillor McTighe is quite right, they get left. It's been asked a lot of times in group meetings with 13, and they say every time, oh yes, we'll do it, and they never do. So you've got your work cut out, Dennis, if you try to liaise with them, because it's right. They get burnt out, and then people who move in don't have a bin, and then the council have to say, well, you have to buy them. So it really needs sorting out. Thank you.
Okay, Dennis, do you have anything to add?
Well, let's have a go. Let's see what we can do. It's a shame that people do this, and it's a shame 13 allow this to happen. But you know, I'm not going to say we can do it, but maybe we should start charging 13 for the new bins and not the residents when they move into these places. But that'll be something we will maybe discuss with them, and we'll come up with some kind of plan. So I'll start that rolling at my daily meeting tomorrow morning with Jeff.
Okay, thanks, Dennis. Councillor Platt.
Yes, thank you, Chair. You say the potholes have been finished. two roads in my ward. Ackham Road, which is a very, very main road, is a disgrace, and so is Hall Drive. Again, Hall Drive is a main thoroughfare. So when are the potholes getting done on those two roads?
Thank you, Councillor. I agree. I drive down that road on a regular basis, Hall Drive, and it's more like the Himalayas than an actual road. It is booked in to be resurfaced, and it will be major works, but we've also got some sinkage in there due to drain problems. So we need to tie in with Northumberland Water in that area, because I believe we've got some leaks in drains. So it needs a little bit of work there, and it's identifying them, but it is bad. And when you go down Hall Drive, it's they're not actually potholes, they're more of a sink, and it depends on the traffic, depends which side of your road you want to drive on. And I agree with you fully, it is a bad road and it'll have to be addressed. Well, that's in the forward programme. So I will get back to you on the exact dates when that's going to come, if that's okay, Councillor. And as well as Ackham Road, you know, it is one of our major roads. So we will have a look at that again, and I'll come back to you on exact dates when the any resurfacing areas or major pothole purge needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Councillor. One of the things I would stress is if we can try and make sure that the questions don't stray too much into kind of ward casework type issues, try and keep them a bit more broad. Those issues, obviously, Dennis has made it clear that people want to raise specific problems that are still going on with potholes. He can go forward. So I would ask members to do that outside of the meeting. So if we can go back over again, because Councillor McTighe said she had another question. If you want to come back in there, Councillor McTighe.
Yes, Chair. Thank you. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Thank you. I'd like to see more TPOs put on some of our trees across the town. We're losing far too many mature trees when house building is taking place. It's all very well to say we're planting this, planting that. It's wrong that we're it's wrong that we're losing mature trees and hedgerow that's 17, 80 years of age. I think we ought to be doing more work on preserving what we've already got. And can I just mention finally the wildflower seeds? Would it be possible? I'm getting a supply from one of the officers for some work that I'm doing with volunteers on some land in Beechwood. But would it be possible for some of these wildflower seeds to be given out to individual councillors if they want them, so they can put them wherever they want to in their ward and in conjunction with residents, so that where people live they can appreciate them, not just on roundabouts.
Thanks,
finally, can I just ask, with regard to the potholes, do you do back checks? That's it, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor. Dennis, do you want to respond?
With regard to taking mature trees down, obviously we have a tree policy, and we only take them down if they're dead, dying, disease or dangerous.
No.
With the new developments, that would be part of the plan, unfortunately, and that would be agreed with the planning department. So we would try as best as possible to keep as many trees where we can. And I agree with you, Councillor, we shouldn't be taking any mature trees down and hedgerows, but this comes with the development of new housing, and this is why we're putting more trees in and trying to get hedgerows put back in as well. With regard to the wildflowers, yes, it's a great idea. If anybody wants some wildflowers, I will arrange for them to be, you can come and collect them up at Environmental City, or for what they are, seeds. These could be posted out to anybody, any councillors or any residents if they need be, because I would imagine we'll have plenty to go around. As well as back checking on the potholes, I believe there is a plan. They go around and double check what they've done. They've mapped out each ward, and then they go back round. But people are only human, and things do get missed. And that's why I put that call out right at the beginning. If anybody has any potholes that have been missed, please, let us know, and we'll try and get them done as soon as possible. Thank you,
Councillor McCabe, I have done that by the one stop, and the reply I'm getting is, sorry, they're not bad enough for repair yet. So that's silly to wait even longer and bring the men back out again. Isn't it more sensible to say, go to those roads, blah, 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 and fill in any potholes that are there? Then you can forget about those roads for a long time. And going back to the trees, what I'd like to see is, whenever we get a planning application which involves house building, I'd like to see your department liaise with planning so that where possible, they can put a TPA on some of the trees, mature trees, so that we don't lose them. That's the only way to save trees, is putting TPOs on. And we need your department to liaise with planning so that they know what trees are going to be chopped down. I mean, I know we're not supposed to talk about ward issues, but we're going to lose 15 mature trees and a lot of ancient hedgerow in one fell swoop in a few weeks' time. It's as if you're sort of taking away 6 trees and giving us another 6. We're not sort of moving any further forward. But thank you anyway.
Councillor, I take the point.
Yeah.
Councillor McCabe, do you have anything further to add?
Yeah, I agree with the potholes. You know, there is an intervention level with a pothole. I don't know if anybody is aware, but it has to be a certain size and a certain depth before it is repaired. Now, as the pothole purge has gone on, they've gone and identified the ones that come into the intervention level. Others will not be in that intervention level, so they will be picked up. Unfortunately, I agree with you, Councillor. They should be done. Everything should be done in the perfect world, and where we've got lots and lots of money to do this. We know things are tight, so that's why we're only doing what we can at the moment. But like I said, the one-stop shop is still working. You know, please put another request in. Keep putting them in. I did it, and I still do it. You know, 3rd time, 4th time, 5th time. Keep putting them in, and it will get done eventually. Councillor, thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor McCabe. If I could just stress to members as well, if we can avoid getting into a dialogue back and forth. If you do want to if you do wish to follow up, that's fine. But if you can do it through me, please, and we'll work it that way. I'll bring Councillor Higgins in after Councillor Morstan, because I know Councillor Morstan had a second question. Councillor Morstan.
Thanks, Chair. It's Dennis is about the scope of your portfolio. Just a bit of clarification. It has you down as responsible for parks and open spaces. Now, last year, I think, or the year before, Stewart Park went into the portfolio of the Executive Member for Culture. Is there a bit of cross-working here? Thanks.
Yeah, Dennis?
That is correct. It went into Councillor Smiles' portfolio, but there is cross-working because it is still the environment. So I am partially responsible for that, and she's mainly involved with any cultural events within the park. So that is the crossover we have got on that, Councillor.
Yeah, thanks, Dennis.
Okay, Councillor Higgins.
For councillors, could all councillors be informed? I didn't know that there was some of those seeds, wildflower seeds, available. So, you know, if one councillor's getting it, I think everybody should get an email saying, if you want any. And also, I do agree that the hedgerows should be looked after and not pulled out, like there has been in our area, but I won't talk about it, and I'm annoyed.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Dennis, do you want to respond?
Thank you, Councillor. I've jotted that down from the previous councillor. Well, flowers to be given out to councillors. I'll make sure there'll be some available for all councillors to have. And I agree with you, where possible, we shouldn't be taking any hedgerows out, because that is for the wildlife, the bees, the birds, etc., nesting birds. We should be keeping it there. And, you know, where possible, it should be, if it's taken out or trimmed back, it should be done correctly at the right time of year. There's too many people going out, cutting back hedgerows outside on nesting season, and they should only be done, you know, with permission from the council, obviously, and done correctly. And, you know, unfortunately, as part of planning applications, some hedgerows may have to be removed for new developments and housing. But where we can, we'll try work with the redevelopment and the regen people and try and keep as much as we can. Thank you, Councillor.
Okay, thanks for that. Dennis, Councillor Hawaii?
Thanks, Dennis.
Thank you, Chair. While I was reading the scope of your portfolio responsibilities, Dennis, one of the areas of remit that you have is environmental enforcement and health and safety and highways. And all of these areas converge to a very serious ward issue, which I'll be disciplined and not go into. But I would just like to ask how you interpret your responsibility under the heading of environmental enforcement, for example, to take one of those areas.
Dennis?
Thank you, Councillor. Environmental enforcement would be in where people are fly tipping, especially in your ward, bin raiding or the commercial bit, the communal bins. It could be anything to do with the water or sewage. Obviously on the roads and the highways, misuse of that. So that would be my portfolio, would look after that area. Enforcement, if people are fly tipping, etc., I would be involved with, if, as a few of the councillors have been on there on this meeting, anybody reports a fly tip to me, we firstly send out an enforcement officer who looks for evidence, and namely, I'm not going to mention a ward, there was a fly tip and somebody had thrown away a cardboard box from a TV and foolishly left the receipt in there, which gave them the name and address. And the officers then had the evidence to go back and catch them people and give them a warning. I'm currently working with legal and Jeff, which I've put in for forward looking at, to bring in a smaller first fine and then a larger fine. But currently we just give them a warning letter, and unfortunately people ignore that and carry on fly tipping. So I would like to start penalising people straight away. They know it's wrong and that's how they do it. Anything else, Councillor?
Okay, Councillor Lowry, do you want to follow up?
Yes, I would really be in favour of much more robust enforcement of any means you can, because I'd also like to see some data about how many people have been prosecuted for fly tipping, whether it's by a letter or any fines. I think, well, I'm not going to walk in, but as you know, in certain wards, it is a serious issue, and I think the prosecution is too lenient, and I would be really interested to see how we can enforce that, and I'd like to see some statistics and to back up improvements moving on and see what we've been doing up to date, so we have some comparability about renewed in enforcing people who are flagrantly fly tipping, etc. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Dennis, anything further to add? Yeah,
thanks for that. Yeah, at the moment where I haven't got any data at hand, but I will get some as much as I can on fly tipping, how much is done. I know at this current time there is people going who will be who have been are taken to court at the moment. I'm trying to get the, don't want to say anything wrong, who are due to go to court due to fly tipping. Obviously, they're innocent until proven guilty. So with the courts being in a very, very slow and in the COVID position, a lot of these prosecutions have been put back. So we will try, as soon as these people have been successfully prosecuted, we will do a press media release on it to, give the people the warning not to do it. But I will endeavour to try and get as much information for you, Councillor, and I will send it all out to all councillors so they're aware of what we're trying to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I can see Councillor Garvey and Councillor McTighe. I'm going to bring Councillor Garvey in first. Councillor Garvey.
Thanks, Chair. Dennis, can I ask you, are we making inroads into the waiting lists for the collected rubbish, both the free and the paid for collection?
Dennis?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Garvey. At the moment, there's about a 3-month wait, roughly a 3-month wait when you want the free collection. And I believe that's about where we are with that. And the paid is about a month. It depends on how much we have to collect, and that's roughly where we are. If we have a Christmas is coming, and and there may be a lot of rubbish getting put out there, so there may be a call for more. So it may slow the process down, unfortunately. But we're roughly around about 12 weeks, 10 weeks there. It depends, and about a month for the paid collections. I'll try and get the correct data for you. I'm not going to say figures at the moment because they may be wrong, and I would like to give you the right figures. So I will forward that information as soon as I get it, Councillor Garvey.
Okay, Councillor Garvey, if you want to follow up.
Yeah. Is there any evidence to show that we're cutting that waiting list down?
I don't believe so. I think it's still around the 12-week wait and about 4 weeks. But I will get you, maybe shorter by maybe a week or so, but I'll get the exact figures for you, Councillor.
Yeah, thanks for that, Councillor McKay. Before I bring Councillor McTighe in, I think that's quite an interesting point, and it would be perhaps be useful to get a comparator between the change in policy on fly tipping that the mayor introduced after the elections and what went before, and whether or not the waiting times are actually longer, and how is the policy actually operating in practice in comparison to what went before it? Because if the new way of dealing with fly tipping is actually increasing waiting times and exacerbating the problem, perhaps we need to look again at how we manage fly tipping as an issue. So if you could perhaps, if that could be, Caroline, if you could make a note, that could be provided to all members of the OSB when we get that, with a comparator to waiting times for fly tipping prior to any changes that were made after the recent local elections. That would be very, very useful. I have Councillor McTighe next.
Yes, very briefly, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Story. I'll implement that tomorrow. Thank you.
Councillor McTighe.
Thank you, Chair, through you. Can I just ask Councillor McCabe, if they try and sort of update the enforcement on damage to grass verges? It's always a problem at this time of the year. Grass verges are being decimated. The soil is being spread onto the pavements. Wheelchairs, pram wheels are getting covered in it. I don't want to mention wards, obviously, but I've seen grass verges repaired, damaged by the same cars, repaired again, damaged by the same cars, over and over again. No enforcement at all. They just repair it, and that's money all the time. It's money all the time. So I would like to see a little bit stronger enforcement, please, if possible.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Dennis?
Councillor, I agree 100%. It is absolutely disgraceful what people will do, and it just shows how lazy people are. You can see them at the supermarket, the park right at the front. They're not prepared to walk across a car park, and we have the same problem on a morning around schools. People are not prepared to walk a short distance to drop the kids off. They'd rather getting children out of cars on a busy road where there's lots of traffic. I'm absolutely I can't believe what people are like. As part of enforcement, we have the obviously yourselves can report these people, and we have a vehicle that goes around and photographs them, and we do back charge people for this, and it starts off with a warning letter, and approximately it's about £80 a metre of a grass verge to be repaired. And like you say, Councillor, it costs a lot of money, and it's money spent time and time and time again. And perhaps we should be looking at the hot spots of these areas that should be removed. The grass verges should be removed and maybe tarmacked over to reduce that and reduce costs. It's one of them uphill battles that we solve it in one area and it appears around the corner. So it's ongoing, but it's a valid point, Councillor, and I will bring it up. Thank you very much.
Can I just say, I have put a suggestion forward. If you plant trees, the species that don't grow tall and don't have strong roots, very long roots, if some of those were planted strategically at these hotspots in such a way that you're not going to leave enough room for a car-to-car parking between the two trees, you're solving two problems. We're going to have more trees in the town. The areas will look nicer to look at, nicer place to live, or greener, and you're going to prevent people parking on the grass verge.
Thanks, Councillor. Perhaps Councillor McCabe can take that suggestion away. It is something that we've discussed. We discussed at the Environment and Regen Scrutiny panel actually the last time we met, and it's an issue I raised about the fact that the gap in funding in the department is actually relatively small. And if the department made a bid to the Capital Fund to get more funding for tarmacking over grass verges, that gap could be filled. And the officer said that he would take that away. Residents have been told that despite being in the high priority band, they won't see their grass verges removed until at earliest 2024, which is a very long time for people to wait. It's after the next set of local elections, which I think is far too long. So perhaps if you can progress that in the department with the officers concerned about getting some more capital funding to make sure we can remove the grass verges that are a problem around the town where necessary. High priority areas should be dealt with quicker than 4 or 5 years down the line. So have we got any further questions for Councillor McCabe? I have a couple of questions of my own, if people will allow. Councillor Thompson can't be here because she's unwell. She had a couple of questions for you which have mostly been answered, but I'll put the ones to you that haven't. The first is, do we have enough funding to complete the pothole purge as expected? So is there enough money to complete that? And also, when will dead and damaged trees that have been removed be replaced? And is that part of the tree planting programme?
First question, yes, we've got enough money to complete the pothole purge. That's been allocated and we're ongoing. So hopefully my ward should be finished very shortly. And obviously, any potholes are missed, we'll try and get round and catch up with. And the second question was dead and dying trees. Yes, they'll be replaced, and they should be replaced by semi-mature trees as close as possible to them areas.
Okay, thanks very much. So that's Councillor Thompson's questions. I've got a couple of my own. One is, he said there's over 12,000 whips been planted. Do you know what the percentage survival rate of whips is, and who's going to manage and maintain those whips, bearing in mind the resource pressure that the department's under?
Thank you, Councillor.
You're on.
It's a bit.
Yes, right. Yes.
Yeah, sorry there, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor. It's a bit ironic. We planted. I shouldn't be, but on my ward a year ago, we planted 250, and the following year the grass could come along and cut the lot down. But we will maintain the areas. They'll be planted in a specific spot, and it's all mapped out. And the grass cutting teams will not enter them areas and damage them. Obviously, we lose about 25%, maybe 30% of that. So next year we will be trying to replace that amount of tree whips. This is due to the fact, if they're managed properly, if you put a mat around it and keep an area about maybe a foot around that whip, that stops any wildlife trying to nibble away at it, because obviously you've got voles and mice would like to have a little bit nibble away at the bark. If you keep an open area, they'll be very reluctant to go into that area in case they get attacked by hawks and what have you, and kestrels. So yes, we overplant, expecting to lose some. It's about 20 to 30%. It seems a large amount, but it's expected. The mature trees, obviously, we'll keep an eye on them because we've paid a lot of money for them, and it's they're a couple of years old and they're up and well established, and we stick them and we'll put bridges around them to protect them from vandalism. We lose a couple, some will die off, but the percentage is quite low on that. But that's about the figures, Councillor.
Okay, thanks very much. My next question is on an area of your portfolio, which is cycling and walking. The government announced £2 billion worth of investment in cycling and walking. £250 million was released to make temporary bus lanes, wider paths, pedestrian access, and extended cycle lanes. And then there's £175 million made available for school streets, where areas around schools were pedestrianised and made safer for parents and families taking kids to school. it's hard to see what benefit that money's been to Middlesbrough. Cook, Baker and Bedford Street have been closed to traffic, but there's been very little major change to cycling infrastructure in Middlesbrough. So what can you tell us about the plans to make large-scale and exciting changes to how we travel around Middlesbrough? And do we not need to be trying to get people out of their cars and making use of this funding that's been made specifically available for that?
Councillor, yes, we have got plans to bring in some more cycle lanes and close and turn roads into one-way systems towards into the town, and that's been done by the Regen team. Also, we're looking at trying to implement some more cycle paths. It's a bit of a dilemma we're in because we've got Middlesbrough as it is, and we've got a lot of cars. We should be encouraging people to get the bus. Our infrastructure for buses and that and cars, we, you know, as a population, we are dependent on the cars. We need to get out of that mindset of using the vehicles and cars. We should be using more public transport. Hopefully, I am pushing with the Regen team and the planning department that all new housing developments have integrated cycle paths that should connect to the existing cycle paths. I've asked the Highways Department to investigate all our existing cycle paths to see if they're up to standard and draw down funding from government to upgrade them. Councillor, thank you.
Okay. I mean, if it's possible for you to perhaps provide the OSB with some information about those particular funding streams that I've highlighted, I'll get the information to Caroline. It will be useful to hear exactly how we're availing ourselves of that national funding and what the kind of what the expansive plans are that we do have for cycling, because for once there is money available. Money is not a problem here. We've been provided with funding, and I think it will be a real shame if we didn't make a full use of that money to get people onto bikes and get them out of cars. So perhaps if you could look into exactly how you will be sort of getting access to that funding and what you'll be using it for, that will be very helpful. Do we have any further questions for? Yeah, sorry. Yeah, thanks, Dennis. That's great. Do we have any further questions for Councillor McCabe? No. Okay. Well, thanks very much for coming along. Thanks to Jeff as well. Appreciate you taking the time to come to the meeting. Okay. So we'll move on to item number 7, which is the Scrutiny Chair's update. So if we start with Councillor Platt, Adult Social Care and Services Scrutiny Panel.
Thank you, Chair. At the last meeting of the panel, we received an update from Michelle Dawson from Ageing Better Middlesbrough in relation to the project which looks at reducing loneliness and social isolation amongst older people. The panel were pleased to hear of the excellent work undertaken by the project, and also pleased that the programme has been extended by a further year due to the success of befriending the service. Ageing Better Middlesbrough has been extremely vital during COVID-19 and reached out to those older people who needed support. Our next meeting is on the 9th of December, which is next week.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Platt. Any questions for Councillor Platt on that update? No? Okay. If we move on to do we have anyone here who can give a report on the Children and Young People's Learning Panel? I know Councillor Hill's not here. Is there anybody who could update us maybe? I don't know if there's any members of that panel in the room. No? Okay, we can move on. Children and Young People's Social Care and Services Scrutiny Panel. Councillor Garvey. Councillor Garvey?
Thanks, Chair. The Children and Young People's Social Care and Services Scrutiny Panel last met on the 9th of November. The Executive Director of Children's Services, Sue Butcher, and the Director of Children's Care, Rachel Farnham, attended. The meeting was to provide further information in relation to the panel's current scrutiny topic, which is sufficiency and permanency perceptions of children in care. The item focused on placement breakdowns of children looked after. The panel discussed and agreed its terms of reference for the topic. The panel also received an update in relation of the recent Ofsted monitoring visit, the multi-agency children's hub, the match in Middlesbrough. The panel's next meeting is scheduled for the 7th of December. The panel will be looking at futures for families and the Innovate team and external placements. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Garvey. Any comments or questions? Councillor Halawi?
No, it's not for Councillor Garvey, actually. It was just a general reminder about if chairs can't attend the OSB, could they please be reminded to send in a written report? I am on that panel, but off the top of my head, I couldn't really give a coherent report. So I'm feeling a bit upset that that work hasn't been represented. So, you know, it would be good if we could have a written report in case of anyone's absence. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Councillor Harvey. I mean, I was just kind of on the spec seeing if anybody might be able to do something, but I think if chairs in future, if they can't be here, if they can arrange for the Vice Chair, I know Councillor Hubbard's here today, because Councillor Saunders can't be here, and no doubt Councillor Hubbard will give a report for the EDI scrutiny panel. It is useful to hear from chairs, and it is an opportunity for us to raise any queries or make any comments about work that's got ongoing. So if in future members can't attend or chairs are aware that they can't be here, it would be good if they can arrange a substitute who can give a report. So next is Culture and Community Scrutiny Panel. That's Councillor McIntyre. Councillor McIntyre.
I hope I've unmuted there. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's Councillor Chris McIntyre speaking, Chair of Culture and Communities. Our last meeting was on the 12th of November. The panel agreed its final draft into community cohesion, and this will be presented to the OSB in January. Our next meeting will be on the 10th of December, and we will be receiving an update to the Prevent agenda, and the Council's events team and Vice Chair of Mila will be there speaking. That's about it, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McIntyre. Any comments or questions for Councillor McIntyre? No? Okay, moving on. Economic Development, Environment and Infrastructure Scrutiny Panel. This report will be delivered by Councillor Hubbard in Councillor Saunders' absence. Councillor Hubbard?
Yes, thanks, Chair. The last meeting we had was the Head of Planning attended, Paul Clark. He spoke at depth about the local plan. We also started the topic of grass verges as we...
Councillor McTighe.
Yes, thank you, Chair, through you. The Health Scrutiny panel met on the 10th of November last, when we received updates from Mark Adams and Craig Blair from the CCG in respect of COVID-19. We also had a report from the Public Health / NHS, as well as an update from Dr. Janet Walker in respect of a virtual COVID ward. And the Development and Delivery Manager of Health Watch South Tees also presented a briefing on the work they've done in the last 12 months, 2019 to 2020. And of particular interest was their recent report entitled Experiences of Lockdown Across South Tees. And if anybody hasn't got a copy of that, I'm sure Caroline would be, I'm speaking, Caroline would certainly send you a copy. It's well worth reading. Our next meeting will be on the 8th of December, when we will hold a final evidence gathering session on opioid dependency. A number of expert witnesses would be present, so please join in and listen. It'll be very interesting, including Chief Inspector Darrell Tomlinson from the Neighbourhood Policing Team, and Marion Walker from our own Middlesbrough Council Head of Stronger Communities, and Dale Metcalf, again from MBC, his lead officer for our street wardens. We'll also have officers from our council's homeless team. And that's it, Chair. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McTighe. Any questions or comments on that? No? Okay, item 8 is date of the next meeting. That's Thursday, the 14th of January at 4 p.m. So I'll wish everyone a Merry Christmas. I hope everyone has a safe Christmas and enjoys themselves as best they can under the current circumstances. Any urgent items in the opinion of the Chair may be considered. I don't have any. I'd just like to thank all the people who've presented, councillors and officers who've been in attendance, and thanks to everyone who's been watching online. And I'll close the meeting there. Thanks everyone for attending.
Chair, can I just ask something, please, before we go?
Yeah.
In future, if the Mayor announces that he can't come, do you think we could have the Deputy Mayor come in his place? Would that be possible, please? Or at least invite him.
It's certainly something we could discuss, Councillor McTighe. I think one of the, we invite the Mayor as a standing item, but he is expected to attend certain meetings. We will insist on it. He's always invited to every meeting in case he can attend and would like to attend, but it's not an expectation. The deputy mayor does have his own portfolio and brief, and he will from time to time come and give us reports on that. So we will hear from him. But we can discuss that with officers outside the meeting as chair and vice chair, myself and Councillor Thompson. It's certainly something we can talk about. Okay.
Thank you.
So with that, I'll close the meeting. Thanks everyone for your time.
Good night. Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Right,
Thank you.
Chair.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.